And we are live. Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. It is, oh God, I have no idea. Thursday, September 1st. All right, God, I knew it was September 1st. I had no idea that it was Thursday. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Neil Orfield. We are here to break down this lovely 4-game MLB slate. Lots to talk about. I actually think it's kind of interesting slate from a pitching perspective, so I'm excited to dig into that. Before we do anything, I need you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Lock is at 6:10. We are going to like 5:55-ish, and then we're kicking it over to college football live before lock after this. So we're going to end it out a little bit earlier than that 6:10 mark, so be prepared for that. Neil, how goes it? Nice microphone. Welcome to the microphone game.
That is the most exciting thing going on in my life is this brand new microphone. I see Malakar already noticed. Malakar has commented, I think my past 3 shows that I put the mic too close to my mouth. So hopefully I'll be better with the new mic. I've never spoken into microphone before. I'll probably turn away and talk sometimes. You won't hear me, but we'll see. I'll figure it out, hopefully.
Sounds good so far. Andrew Jennison says, is this Josh's 4th show today? It is my first show today. From a baseball perspective, at least. I did an MMA strategy show earlier today. That's it for me, though. I will do 4 pieces of content. Process show was pre-recorded, and then the sports betting video will come out after this. So it will be 4 shows, only 2 of which are live, though. Go check out the MMA strategy show, by the way, where I just let everybody know all of the shitty fighters that I'm going to be playing and don't talk about anybody that has actual talent, because that's MMA DFS nowadays.
Yep. You're doing
What
an
are you
MMA show?
do?
Yeah.
Yeah, had to cover for Pete the Heat. They had to get they put in a better version of a fighter, as far as I'm concerned.
We haven't had Pete and Jason together for a while now. One of them's been missing every show.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah,
I'll have to watch it.
I missed the most recent UFC card, so I didn't see anything for the pay-per-view. So, and then we didn't have a show last week, so it's been a month since I've seen actually any of our content.
Yeah, always good content.
4-game MLB slate. We've got a 6:10 start. We've got a 9:40 late game. So you're not going to know how you're doing for a while, at the very least. Let's just take a slow lap through everything. We've got plenty of time to break it down. We could talk about every individual hitter and pitcher if we wanted to, and it wouldn't be all that difficult. But let's just start it from a pitching standpoint. Who do you feel is the top pitcher on today's slate?
Okay, so from a large field GPP standpoint, I don't know that it's clearly Spencer Strider, just because, I mean, he's clearly the top pitcher from like a point per dollar standpoint.
Yeah.
He's 8,800. He has the highest odds of being one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate. So from that perspective, it is Spencer Strider. From any kind of like cashy setting, it'd be Spencer Strider. But from a large field GPP standpoint, you could argue that it's like Brandon Woodruff, just because he's getting 30% lower ownership than Spencer Strider, or Shane Bieber, who is also getting like 23% lower ownership. I'd say those 3 are in the conversation. Is Josh there?
Josh is here. Am I not here?
I didn't see you for a second, and then I thought I saw Jordan making a face, so I was like, "Oh shit, did I lose Josh?" Okay, you are there.
Nice. I thought so too, but then I started to get nervous that it was me.
But you could hear me at least.
I heard at first you were a little robot-y, and then you became normal.
All right, good. So
not to imply that robots are not normal. For all of the phones and speakers that are listening to me. You are normal.
Get woke, Josh.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So I'm with you. Like, I've got Strider projected better than anybody else, and I am getting to Strider at basically the field. The stand that I'm taking is I'm quite a bit heavier on Shane Bieber and quite a bit light on Brandon Woodruff. I have not looked at our projection for Brandon Woodruff yet. I assume I'm significantly below it. What do we have Brandon Woodruff projected for?
Yeah, I don't have it pulled up.
So okay. I do have it pulled up. I just wasn't looking at that particular moment. So I could scoot back over to our projections, and I can see that we have Brandon Woodruff at 18.23 fantasy points. Basically a quarter fantasy point behind Shane Bieber. I have Bieber by 3 fantasy points. And that is causing me to get a lot of Bieber and a lot of Strider and not a lot of Brandon Woodruff. And honestly, I don't mind it, because there are only so many places that you can slightly get different here. And if that's going to be my spot, the 10K Brandon Woodruff, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that the 2 guys below him beat him.
What do you think causes you to be so much lower on Brandon Woodruff? Is it like an innings thing? Do you have him projected for fewer innings, or what? Can you pinpoint a cause? And does it concern you if you can't?
So no, not really. The price tag is surely the first issue. He is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, which is going to cause him to come down just in my ownership. Now, if we're talking about from a projection standpoint, I've got Shane Bieber in for 6 1/3, so 19 outs. I have Brandon Woodruff in for 5 1/3, so that's basically an extra inning for Shane Bieber. Now, I could just be wrong about the Brandon Woodruff start. I don't hate it. Like, I could be convinced to give him another out. I wouldn't really want to go too much further than that. I mean, we're talking about like they're favorites, but nothing crazy. Relatively low implied total makes me kind of want to give him an extra out. He's thrown. Where did it go? That's Brandon Crawford. Wrong Brandon. You type in Brandon, you just assume you're going to get the right answer, but you don't. 108 2/3 innings across 20 starts this season. That is just over 16 outs. I think that I could probably pretty safely give him another out and feel pretty comfortable here. And if I do, it's likely to bump him up just shy of a point. I'm going to see what it does. So if I go from 16 outs to 17 outs on Brandon Woodruff, I go from a 17 fantasy point projection to an 18 fantasy point projection on the dot. And that increases my exposure from 13% to 23%. I actually like the balance a little bit more there. So I was probably a little light on Woodruff, but ultimately that is one spot that I'm getting slightly different. We'll talk about how else I'm getting different. That's going to be from a hitting perspective, and it's against Brandon Woodruff. So there's also that. I think Strider kind of speaks for himself here. Is there anything that we could really say about him other than the fact that he's 8,800 and he gets to face arguably the worst team in baseball when they're not in their own home park?
Yeah, Spencer Strider has the highest strikeout rate on the slate by over 10%. No, I guess Woodruff isn't. He's only 7% above, 8% above Woodruff. But yeah, Spencer Strider has a 37% strikeout rate, 8% above Brandon Woodruff, and he is cheaper and playing against the Rockies. So yeah, I don't think there's any real argument. You don't really need to go into it too much. Spencer Strider is like clearly the best point per dollar play on the slate by a mile. Really, the only thing that you can say against Spencer Strider is that he is getting huge ownership. That's really the only reason to fade him.
Yep, I'm with you. Does anybody else stand out to you? Because we have basically half of the ownership going to Strider and Bieber. You get to like 70% if we add in Woodruff. And it's obvious why those three guys get ownership. Like they're clearly really good pitchers. Is it a Merrill Kelly day for you? Is it a Rich Hill day for you? Are you like me and you're getting to Glenn Otto?
I hope not. So yeah, outside of those three, I would say I want to get to some Merrill Kelly. He looks good in the top pitcher stool. 21.4% projected ownership, 27.2% chance of being a top two pitcher. Merrill Kelly is okay. And then Kyle Bradish is pretty interesting to me just because he's a totally different price point, allows you to do a little bit more. I trust him more than Glenn Otto, particularly. I think I'd rather face Cleveland than Boston. So yeah, Kyle Bradish coming in at 8.8% projected ownership, 18.2% chance of being a top two pitcher, and 30% chance of being a top two value pitcher. I'd say that those five are the pitchers that I'm most interested in: Strider, Woodruff, Bieber, and then Kelly, Bradish. Rich Hill is going up against Texas, so that's sort of interesting, I guess. Yeah. Chad Kuhl is, I think, the best argument you can make for him is that he's getting no ownership, and Atlanta does strike out a lot. I think Glenn Otto is my least favorite, but you say that you're getting to a lot of him. He does actually look pretty good in the top pitcher stool. 21.1% chance of being a top two value pitcher on the slate. So maybe I'll play some Glenn Otto. I should probably make some lineups just to check myself here. But just reading this, I think I'm most interested in, outside of those top three, I think I'm most interested probably in Kyle Bradish. Do you have, what's your reasoning behind liking Glenn Otto today against the Red Sox?
2.5% projected ownership helps. I think getting to Chad Kuhl is basically impossible against Atlanta. Worst spot just altogether. I think, Glenn Otto, not that this is something that I really look into, but it's like Glenn Otto is much more likely to get a win than Chad Kuhl is at the bottom, which would be certainly helpful at that salary. But it's mostly just I needed to free up at least a little bit of salary, and Glenn Otto is getting 2.5% ownership. If Glenn Otto just came up to like 6 or 7, I think that I'm just out of that range entirely. I'd probably be more likely to get to Kyle Bradish or even slightly higher and getting to Rich Hill. But for right now, if he's basically unowned, I'm kind of just going to take that shot. Do I want to face what I think is the best offense on this slate? Sure don't. But like, I don't know if Glenn Otto's truly atrocious. I think he just might be below average, and I mean that as a mild compliment in this case. But honestly, from an explanation standpoint, I don't really have one. I think it's just one of those spots where he's getting very minimal ownership, and I needed some place to be slightly different on a 4-gamer.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And he does look, so I think that I just leaned to Chad Kuhl there. I mean, obviously Chad Kuhl is not great either. And it's also a really tough matchup against Atlanta, but Atlanta does strike out a little bit more. Chad Kuhl is the cheapest pitcher on the slate, so he will allow you, theoretically at least, to get some lineups that Glenn Otto will not. He has a higher chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher on the slate, higher odds of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate according to the top pitchers tool. So it's a slightly. I don't really want to get to either of them. So I guess we're kind of splitting hairs here. But I think that I slightly lean toward Chad Kuhl over Glenn Otto. Did you see our super chat?
I did see our super
Okay.
chat. I'll hit on that right now, I guess. Nick Angel? We'll call you Nick, and that's way easier. Who's your guys' favorite cheap one-off today on FanDuel? I have a 4-4 Atlanta-Boston stack with Strider, but you need 3 teams. Right now, I have 2,300 for a utility. I think maybe Narvaez. Thoughts? Love the show. I mean, in these cases, my answer is generally who's projected the highest with the amount of salary that you have left.
So I'm looking at the top batters tool right now. I pulled it up for FanDuel, and I'm looking at, rather than, I don't know if it's going to be the same as the projection order, but I'm looking at their odds of having the top fantasy point percentage of all batters. And I'm just scrolling down and looking for the highest on the list that is 2,300 or cheaper. The first I came across was Eddie Rosario. He can't play Eddie Rosario. I believe the next that I see here is Rob Refsnyder for the Red Sox. You could think about playing Rob Refsnyder against Glenn Otto. Yeah, Jose Iglesias, but he's facing Spencer Strider. I'd rather play Refsnyder there. Jace Peterson against Merrill Kelly, maybe. I don't know. Who do you like from? Are you looking at it?
I mean, when you named, let's see, who was the first guy that you named?
Rob Refsnyder.
All right. So I'm
Eddie Rosario, I was like, that's actually a good play. Like, I would like to play Eddie Rosario. That makes sense to me, but
yeah,
he can't play Eddie Rosario because he needs to be somebody outside of the. Oh, we can't play Red Sox either, I think. So
yeah, so Refsnyder's done.
Yep.
So now we're just picking out of guys that are like 6 to 9% top batter, and at that point, I still I think it's even bigger of a crapshoot than it was before that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, all these guys are kind of, there's nobody that you really want to play below that. I'm probably going to skip over Jose Iglesias. I think I would probably go to Jace Peterson.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. It's either going to be Peterson, Iglesias, or then you're down in like Charlie Culberson.
So I'm seeing Jose Iglesias on this list twice now, which is confusing me. Oh, he's listed as a shortstop and a second baseman. Huh. Okay, whatever.
That makes sense. He's got this percentage of being the top scoring second baseman, this percentage of being the top shortstop. 2 separate answers, technically.
Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point.
I hadn't thought about it either, but yikes.
Huh, I thought because I selected all that it would be in util, but I guess that's not how this works. So I wonder if I go to,
I think all is just all.
Yeah, so it just includes all the positions, doesn't do it for the util specifically.
Yeah, because Iglesias is 7.5 to be the top fantasy getter at second base, and then 8.4% at short. There's some additive bonuses there for Jose Iglesias, I guess.
Yeah.
Former Brave too, so it makes it feel like an even bigger stack. I think he was a former Brave at least. Am I thinking of the right guy? It doesn't matter.
Sounds right. I believe it.
I actually don't think he was now that I'm saying it out loud. 2 teams. Show minors, partial seasons. Nope, not a former Brave. I'm wrong. Boston, Detroit, Cincinnati, Baltimore, the Angels, Colorado.
We played everywhere else.
Yeah, I was close. I could have swore he was a prospect coming up. Show minors. Nope, Boston prospect the entire time. I don't know who the hell I'm thinking of, but we'll put that one to bed. Guys, hit that like button. 446 people in here, 64 likes. I'm fine with having all the 4s and 6s there, but I think we can get up to 100 likes pretty quickly. 36 more will get us to that mark, so don't sleep on it. Hit that thumbs up. And remember, college football live before lock is coming up after this one. 6 p.m. start. You get Ben, you get Matt. Shano. Someone clip Josh saying show minors. Oh, God. You found my search terms. Anyway, I think we've probably squeezed out all of the legitimate information about pitchers. Great Scott comes in saying Cavs are contenders. That's not true.
Maybe in the
East. But I don't even know if that's true.
You don't think so?
I mean, is having the sixth best win projection a contender? I'd say no.
I mean, as a Timberwolves fan, I'd say yes, absolutely.
You might make a case that Minnesota's better than the Cavs.
I would make that case, but I'm a homer.
But no, I don't think they're contending for anything. I don't think they have
not.
a single chance. And I mean Cleveland in this case for sure. I don't think they have a single I mean, like they're not the favorites to host a first round playoff series. I don't think that you can be a contender if you're not likely, if you're less than 50% to actually host a playoff series.
That's a fair metric, I think. Do you see? I wanted to bring this up to you. So Larry C asked a question that I wanted to talk about anyway. It says Josh O'Neill, on slates this size, how many hitters versus pitchers do you use on Fantasy Cruncher? Do you set it anything greater than 0?
I don't actually. I wouldn't have any issue setting it to 1. That wouldn't make much of a difference to me. I just don't. I haven't really ever found the need for it at 4, particularly on DraftKings. I think the flexibility is just there to get a 5-man stack, and there are certainly enough 3-man combinations outside of that I don't think that I'm going to be too limited. If I were going to do anything, I would happily go to 1. If this were 3 games, I would probably just set it to 1 right out of the gate, and I wouldn't even be mad about 2 in that case. But with 4 games, I think I just have enough options. Do you set it to 1?
Yeah. So normally that's about my cutoff too. Like normally for 3 games, I certainly would set it to 1 or 2 or 3, maybe sometimes it really depends on the slate. On a 4-game slate, I usually won't set it to anything greater than 0. I think that I am going to on this slate just because I'm concerned about how concentrated the offenses are that people are going to want to play. Like nobody's going to want to play Colorado. Nobody's going to want to play Arizona. Nobody's going to want to play Baltimore. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like we're going to be really concentrated on this slate just because we have 3 really solid pitchers that people aren't going to want to play the offenses against. So I think that I might set it to 1, possibly 2. I think that's as high as I would go. I wouldn't go higher than 2 on this slate, but I think you could go up to as much as 2 if you just want to get a little bit different.
Yeah, I have no issue. Like I wouldn't have an issue with anybody going up to 2 on a day like today. I just don't. By the way, DraftKings Sportsbook over under for wins for the Minnesota Timberwolves, 48.5, slightly shaded to the over. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, 46.5, slightly shaded to the under.
Nice. That's what I like to hear.
So, yeah.
I did make that bet, by the way, while I was in Michigan. I was able to play some sports bets, and I took that one. So if that hits, then I don't have to worry about my Karl Anthony Towns for MVP not winning, because I know that one's not going to win, but I placed it anyway.
I mean, it's probably not going to win, but they're live in the regular season to have like a ridiculous year. I mean, Rudy Gobert just makes teams good in the regular season. He immediately turns you into a really good defense. So it's interesting. Jake, these projections are on a sports book right now. No, they don't just leave their shitty numbers out there for an hour and a half after the trade gets popped. This is just what's out there. They're behind Boston. They're behind Milwaukee. They're behind Brooklyn. They're behind Philly. They're behind Miami. They're behind... I'm missing someone else here. Then they're there. They're a game ahead of Atlanta, although the juice is over on Atlanta and under on Cleveland. So I think that one's pretty close. Similarly, they're a game over the Toronto Raptors. Again, same story. Juice is over for the Raptors, under for Cleveland. It's messy right there. They're less likely to host. They're a dog to host a playoff series. You're not a contender in those cases.
That's a big spend for not being favored to host a playoff series.
Yeah, it's like obviously Donovan Mitchell's good. Do I want to cash in essentially 4 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps to get him? No. I think I would rather have I think there's a better if you're willing to make that trade, I think you're able to make that for something that slightly fits Cleveland better down the line.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no need to rush it. They don't have it this year, so kick the can down the road a bit.
I think you and I talked about this after the Rudy Gobert trade just a little bit on Twitter. We went back and forth a little bit, and I was at that time, I think you and I were in agreement that the Wolves overpaid. Like he makes them better, but they overpaid. And I have since come around to it. I think just because I'm a Wolves fan, people have talked me into it. It's like, no, they're real contenders. They could win this year. And I think that I have come around to it just because the Wolves don't get free agent signings, and Cleveland is kind of the same way. Nobody's going to either destination willingly or for like among the stars. So you kind of have to overpay in those scenarios. So I don't totally hate it, but I think I prefer the Gobert trade to the Donovan Mitchell trade, even though he's a little bit older.
I think they probably gave up a little bit too much in that Gobert trade. I think it's interesting to just, if you want to look at these two deals on the surface, that the league generally values Gobert more than it values Donovan Mitchell, which probably isn't the case in like day-to-day discourse.
Yeah.
I like taking the shot on Gobert just because he has an actual skill that changes the way basketball gets played.
Nobody else has that.
There are guys like Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
Rudy Gobert is a ready-made, top 6 defense by default.
Yep.
That could be if the other things click. If Edwards takes that step, you have Towns as already one of the most talented offensive big man. I think there's a way that works better. Do I think they're winning the title? Absolutely not. But I think they've improved more in the regular season than Cleveland did.
Yep, I'm on the same page. And if D'Angelo Russell steps it up, I feel like D'Angelo Russell has been better than he was last year for the Wolves. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I haven't actually looked at it and confirmed, but I felt like when he was on the Nets, he had one season where he was just phenomenal. And if he could get back to that, but that's just conjecture. It's not based on anything. So probably not true.
See.
Yeah.
Danny continues to play the rest of the league like he's the lone human GM in NBA 2K. He's just acquiring picks, and then he's going to ship out like 4 or 5 more rotation players now and get even more picks. So good for him there.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk stacks?
Yeah, let's talk stacks.
So I'm largely in agreement with our top stack tool. I am getting to one of the teams that we shouldn't want to take against a good pitcher, which I kind of said earlier. Who is your favorite stack for today's main slate?
Very good question. That's a very good question. This is really tough because it's the stacks that have positive leverage are the stacks that are going up against Bieber, Woodruff, and Strider. So Milwaukee is neutral. They're facing Merrill Kelly. Maybe Texas. I don't know. Texas has pretty good odds of being a top value stack. So you could make an argument for Texas. It's just that the offenses that are good that you actually want to play are getting a ton of ownership. Actually, I think here's where I'm going to go. Even though I like Kyle Bradish, I think it might be Cleveland for me, just because I think that Cleveland actually has an offense good enough to break a slate. And I think Kyle Bradish is hit or miss. I think that there's a wide range of outcomes for that game. So I think it actually might be Cleveland that I'm coming around to. How about you? Who do you like?
Well, like is relative.
Yep.
I'm heavy to the Braves. I'm eating a lot of that ownership. I'm basically with the field. I'm slightly north of the field. So I understand why they're a top stack. Chad Kuhl is to me the worst pitcher on the slate. And I'm happy to at least get a bunch of Braves exposure. That's not a hot take. By twisting the knobs on the back end, I am getting to the Arizona Diamondbacks today as my second most exposed 5-man stack team. Don't love it, that's for sure. If I didn't crank the dials slightly more, I was just straight. It was basically like I was just playing the field's exposure. I was even with the Braves, even with the Red Sox, even with the Rangers, like basically even with the Guardians. I started making some slight changes to start trimming a little bit of ownership, and the Diamondbacks were the team to climb to the top. Not something that I expected, not something that I even really want to advocate hard for, but I felt like I was kind of drawing a line straight through the Rockies right out of the gate on the opposite side of Strider. And because of my heavier than the field exposure to Bieber, I was kind of drawing that same sort of line through the Orioles. So I just kind of ran out of teams at the bottom. And the Diamondbacks, I have the Diamondbacks as a slightly better value than we do in the top stacks tool. We had a 10% out of 11.5. And I think that value is what's driving them up, because other than Josh Rojas at 5K, and he's in the leadoff spot, so that's not so bad. And then you get Kettle Marte at 4,800. The bottom of their order is incredibly cheap. And I'm already paying up at least 8,100 on just about every pitcher that isn't named Glenn Otto. So go Diamondbacks against Brandon Woodruff today.
I don't hate it. They look good in the top stacks tool. 5.1% ownership, 6.7% top stack odds, 9.9% top value odds. It's a tough matchup. Man, Colorado, I think Adam said on the last show the same thing, or whatever show I listened to that he was on earlier, that he's not interested in Colorado. We have seen Spencer Strider get completely blown up. The issue, though, is that I also don't really love facing the Braves bullpen. They have a pretty solid bullpen. So I want to make an argument for Colorado because they look good in the top stacks tool. I think they look the best of any team in the top stacks tool. 2.3% projected ownership, 5.8% chance of being the top stack, 6.7% chance of being the top value stack. I want to make the argument for Colorado. It's a tough argument to make. I think really the only argument to make is that this is a 4-game slate and nobody's playing. A 2.3% owned offense on a 4-game slate is, you don't see it very often. So I think that I am going to play some Colorado. I can't really articulate a good reason to play them based on baseball. The only reason to play them is based on DFS, and DFS is sometimes you got to play ugly stacks, and I think this might be a stack that I'm willing to play.
I have 3 5-man stacks of the Rockies. They got into 1 3-man, 12 2-mans, and 43 one-offs for a grand total of 6.5% ownership, which is like 2.5 times the field. So do I want that to happen? No. And like, I certainly don't, look, if my Rockies stacks are the ones that succeed, by all means, but I hope that I just get like their one-off correct in whatever lineup I have that's doing good, preferably a Diamondback stack. But I am over the field on the Rockies in the aggregate, so I can't disagree with you, but not exactly the most likely scenario here for me.
Over the field is what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for 20% Rockies.
No, that would be a tough sell for sure. Or you could be like me and have 20% of the Diamondbacks. I am very light in comparison to the field on the Red Sox. So if we're talking about fading anything of value, it is the Red Sox. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that they are at least to me, the premier optimizer team. They've got a really high top stack odds, but they also have a really high top value score. And at that point in time, that's always going to be sort of like the first team that I can get away from because they're going to be the easiest team for everybody else to build. Also,
you consider Glenn Otto to be like a Cy Young candidate?
I do.
So I do. That might be part of it.
For reference sake, I have 15% Glenn Otto, so 7% of my portfolio.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm going to want to be underweight to Boston and Atlanta and probably just play more of the other stacks down below. One other thing that I think that I'm considering doing today on DraftKings is, so typically on DraftKings on full slates, I play 5-man stacks and I either do secondary stack or I just do one-offs, whatever fantasy country gives me. I think I might consider doing like a 4-3 kind of construction today, just because I'm not that confident that any of these teams are going to put up enough runs to support a 5-man stack. So I think this is a kind of slate that I'm at least considering doing like a 4-3 build. I think I'm leaning that way. I'm going to do shorter stacks, two shorter stacks rather than one large stack.
I was just thinking out loud in my, we should probably have some sort of little chart on the site that says, when there's 6 games, the likelihood of an individual team scoring 10 plus runs is X.
Yeah.
I think that might be helpful from like a stack perspective question to know, like, basically the way that you're describing it. Like, we've only got 4 games here today. Are we better off not stacking as aggressively? How frequently does one team separate from the other 7? That'd be good data to put up. That would be really easy to pull too. Let me think about that.
You're good at pulling that kind of data. It would take me weeks to try and pull that kind of data. You could probably do it in hours.
I don't have a really good, I would have to get everything running again. I don't have a good baseball database or anything installed any longer. I've stopped caring and just offloaded all of that to exporting CSVs from Fangraphs because it's just simpler to maintain. If Steamer's willing to do all the work and normalize everything to 600 plate appearances, I'm not going to build a better system than that. So I don't even bother.
That's sort of my approach to stochastic tools is maybe I could figure out how to make some of this. Probably not as good as the stochastic tools are anyway, if I'm being honest, but why would I even bother when the projections and tools are so good that I can just use what's given to me?
Yeah.
I mean, not given to me. I do have to, or no, I guess I don't pay for it anymore because now that I'm employed, but I used to have to pay for it. But still, it's just worth using the tools that are available.
Yeah. Congrats. You have free stochastic now.
I already had that. Just as a contributor, but it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's been very nice never paying for it for 4.5 years.
I bet. Yeah, it's
Got it straight out of the
deal.
jump.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of Rudy Gobert hate in the chat, and you guys are just wrong.
Yes.
Glorified help side defender.
Random.
Come on. Yeah. Give me a break.
I can't imagine saying something like that for somebody with his, like, he's going to make the Hall of Fame because of his defensive pedigree.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's basically easily in already.
Yeah.
To think otherwise is just comical. Maybe if guys like Donovan Mitchell and Jordan Clarkson and Bojan Bogdanovic could play any perimeter defense, it wouldn't have been such a tire fire for the Jazz every year in the playoffs. But alas, what do I know? I mean, we're talking about a guy that only won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards and has finished 3rd team All NBA 3 out of the past 4 years. But
yeah,
poppycock.
No
first
good.
team All Defense for the past 6 years. But
glorified help side defender.
Yes. Yeah, I can't imagine why he gets any of those accolades or why anybody would trade 7 first-round picks and half the team for him. Woof.
And now Random saying, look at his man-on-man numbers. Know the sport, bro. This is clearly a fact. I don't really care about his man-on-man numbers. Part of the reason that Rudy Gobert is such a good defender is that he's such a good help defender.
Yeah.
He makes it tough for the entire opposing offense.
I'm not sure there's anything less interesting than man-to-man defense numbers for a center. But if we want to be clear here, Rudy Gobert guarding a switch in a pick and roll is exceptional. One of the better rates of any big men in the league. But, there's also that. We'll ignore that piece too. Go check the numbers. I don't know what my wife is cooking. This is going to sound really weird. I don't know what my wife is cooking right now, but it smells like urine. It smells like dehydrated urine.
I don't think I have any guesses as to what she might be cooking that smells like urine. If anybody in chat has what do you think Josh's wife is cooking that smells like urine? Anybody in chat have an idea? We've only got 4 games.
I'm texting her right now to find out. Okay. So earlier today, she was making like this Greek chicken salad, and like I could smell this chicken. It was great. Smelled exceptional. This is the exact opposite right now. A lot of guys thinking it is actually pee.
Yeah, Jordan Klein guessed right away that it is pee. So urine. So,
I mean, hot dogs and sauerkraut, no. Asparagus, broccoli, no. Sauerkraut, no. Josh's hands is a good one. I can handle that.
I like that.
Borscht, no. Chickpea salad, no. Bull testicles, asparagus.
Do you have a dog?
Yeah.
Because dogs do love bull dick. Bully sticks.
Yes. My dog is a huge fan of the bully stick.
Yeah.
We used to get them at Costco. They would sell them by like the 50-pound bag, basically.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bull penis that you got to just load up for Costco. Yeah, no response from her, and it's kind of annoying because I know that grilled chicken and a broccoli mushroom quinoa bake. So it must be the broccoli.
Yeah. Oh. Well, enjoy that.
As of right now, I will not. So there we go. We got it. I guess it's broccoli. I guess.
I like broccoli. Sometimes.
I love broccoli.
In the right meal.
My filler arc combining sports, so I think that'll be fine. Rudy Gobert would get twisted by Holland or Gabriel Jesus, so he is not a good defender. I mean, seems like no one's slowing Erling Haaland down. So there's that.
Is that MMA? I don't even know what sport that is.
That is soccer.
Okay. That makes sense. Why I would never have heard of these people.
Erling Haaland is probably the best goal scorer on the planet, who now plays for Manchester City. And he had 2 hat tricks in the span of like 5 days. He's just going to score like 1 million goals this year, and it's going to suck.
Sorry.
All right, let's see what else we got here. Who's the sneak stack today? Because it's the Diamondbacks for me. We've got the Diamondbacks, the Orioles, and the Rockies as the only teams that are basically 5% owned or less. How confident are you in one of those teams being the team that you need?
I am zero confident in any of those teams being the team that you need. If I have to choose from those three, I think I can make. I think it's Colorado just because they get less than half the ownership of the other two, and they are in similar matchups.
Let's do a nice little exercise for people because I bet most people don't. I might have just crashed my sheet. Let's click save here before anything goes wrong. There we go. Saved and saved. I doubt people do this. So I think this is an interesting way to look at some of these things. I'm going to pull up our top stack tool. And let's see. Top stacks. So we know that the top stack odds for Colorado, which people would never think this, it's 5.8%. I'm just going to call it 6 for right now, which means that there's a 94% chance that they are not the top stack. That also means that there's a 7% chance that Arizona is, which also means there's a 93% chance that they are not. And then we're going to go 93% chance that Baltimore is also not. It means there's an 81% chance that all three of those teams are not one of the top teams. There's a 20% chance that one of Baltimore, Arizona, or Colorado is the top stack. It doesn't take much before you add in Cleveland, and all of a sudden we're talking about a much bigger number, and you start working your way from the bottom to the top. Who is that team at the bottom that you think might break free? Because it's easy to say Atlanta and Boston, but it's just as likely for Atlanta to be the top stack as it is one of those bottom three teams.
And Atlanta's getting 23.2% ownership. The other three teams are getting 12.4% combined ownership.
Right. And that's where it starts to get interesting. Are you better off just having a bigger exposure pile of Colorado, Arizona, and Baltimore? Because when you win, you are paid off in a better way than you are when you're fighting 25% of the field with Atlanta.
Yep. And that's how most pro DFS players play. We take on higher odds or higher proportions of the teams that don't have great odds, but in aggregate have decent odds and get no ownership.
It's weird to look. I wish we could somehow show that sort of inverse, that Atlanta's top stack odds equal Baltimore plus Arizona plus Colorado at half the ownership. Yeah. That's where it starts to get squirrely. Jordan, put up a poll. I'm going to put you to work. You got to do something for once. Baltimore, Arizona, Colorado. Which of our three lowest top stack teams does the chat want to take a shot on? Reminder, I'm on Arizona.
I'm on Colorado.
Okay.
Just because they're even lower ownership than the other two. Not because
I can't be taking Baltimore because I don't want Adam to be happy in life.
He's got that new, what's his name? Gunderson. Gunnar Henderson? Yeah. Gunnar Henderson. Yeah. Gunderson. So he's happy. I think he's just combine the names. Also, he's got Cal Raleigh going for him.
Oh, that was miserable. Baltimore, Colorado, Arizona. Gunderson. I love it. By the way, guys, still hit that like button. We're up over 100 now. Where's the guy that was telling us that Arizona was going to smack the Phillies yesterday, and it was ridiculous that the Phillies were the favorites because that went the wrong way for him?
Yeah, in a big way. Which you won your tournament with the Phillies stack, correct?
I did with 1 out of 150 lineups having a 5-man Philly stack. I struck gold. It's so dumb. DFS is so dumb.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I hate it so much. I woke up just thinking I opened the MLB app and I saw that the Phillies had 14 runs or whatever the hell they ended up having. And I was like, oh, I was getting my ass kicked before that happened. And I knew that I didn't have Philly. And then I flip open DraftKings and I click on the My Contest tab. And I finished 9th in the 4-seamer the night before. So I thought that it just hadn't refreshed yet. And the amount that I was seeing at the top was just the carryover from yesterday. I was like, that doesn't seem right. And then I was like, 500 mini max. I was like, oh, how did I end up doing? Oh, I won it. So stupid. 1 out of 150. Terrible.
Congrats.
Terrible. I missed out on the best stack yesterday. That's a shame.
Yeah, I only made one, as I told you before the show. I only made one stack on DraftKings yesterday because I missed the main slate. So I entered one lineup in the $3,000 contest, and it was a Philly stack, and had a big shot at making a lot of money late. And I made a little bit of money, so I'll take it.
Chat is up to 53 votes so far. Colorado coming in last. Arizona at the top spot here. It's an even better reason to get to Colorado.
Yeah.
Even better. Maybe their ownership comes in a little bit lighter here. I saw something else. Stephen Goad said, I assume on both sites. No, this is just a DraftKings question. I'd be crazy if I were talking about FanDuel. Oh, man.
They're not in the order of the top stack odds. So the top stack odds have you're just more persuasive than I am, is what it comes down to.
Baltimore's showing up a lot for a team that I feel like we haven't even talked about.
Yeah.
I have 8% Baltimore. Like, I'm over that mark. I've got 9% of my 5-man stacks as Baltimore. We're projecting 5% aggregate ownership. So I'm happy to get there. Gunnar Henderson, $2,600 shortstop, looks great. They're just expensive at the top with Mullins, Rutschman, and Santander, but I don't really, it's not that I think that those guys don't deserve those price tags. So I'm happy to have a little bit of Baltimore. My problem is that I have 62% Shane Bieber.
Yeah, that'll dampen it a little bit. Cedric Mullins, I noticed. I was just looking at the top batters tool earlier, and Cedric Mullins only projected for 5.5% ownership with a 12.8% chance of being one of the top 3 outfielders on DraftKings. So looking pretty good there. And Anthony Santander, similar, 2% projected ownership, 10.9% chance of being a top 3 fantasy point scorer on DraftKings. So I have a lot of interest in Baltimore.
I just ended the poll because Arizona jumped to 44%. It was tied for a second, so I wanted it to go my way.
Yeah, smart. I don't know you could do that. I don't think I have that power. I guess you have the Stokastic YouTube. You think so?
I think so. I don't know. I mean, I made the channel, so I better have all the stuff forever.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
Back in the day, we didn't have a choice. It was either going to be me or Eddie. There weren't a lot of other people doing anything.
Yeah.
Jake was just a wee lad back in the day. Now he's got all these powers behind the scenes.
Yeah, Jake's got major power. I thought that he was more of a content. I didn't realize until I started working here, and I work with Jake pretty closely. I still thought of him as being a content guy, like a 50-50 content guy. Turns out he doesn't really do much content at all anymore. He's basically just behind the scenes, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that's crazy. When I first came over, it was still basketball season. Baseball was going to start in like 2 weeks. And they were like, "Hey, you got to do this baseball show. You're going to host with this guy, Jake." And we just I didn't know him at all. We just kind of hopped on a show and just did our first show together. We were both so bad, so bad. It was just a completely different industry, a completely different time. Neither one of us had the confidence to be on that show. I didn't know what it was like to host a show or vice versa. Like, the only shows that I'd done previously were all by myself. So I didn't have to throw to anybody or answer questions or do whatever. I just did whatever I wanted to do. It's amazing we got through it all. Shout out to Jake.
Great job, though.
Yeah.
Made it through to the other side.
And then some. All right. Do we want to talk about potential cash options on DraftKings for today? Or at least the guys we would expect to be showing up in the most sort of cash game lineups. I'm going to run. I'm pretty sure Strider's going to be there. I'm going to run my crunch on my projections. No randomness or anything turned on, just to see who shows up most for me. Cross-reference that a little bit with ownership, and I think we'll get most of the right answer here. Spencer Strider is, I left 5-man stacks on. That is not going to be the way that I want to do this. Not on a day like today, at least. Because I don't need a 5-man stack. Even I might get to a 5-man stack, but I don't need to plan for it. And I'm pretty close to it out of the gate. Spencer Strider, 65 of the first 65, 75 of the first 75, 85 of the first 85. Is it going to go perfect? Spencer Strider is in all 100 lineups that I generated with no randomness. I get to Bieber pretty aggressively as my number 2. I think that's the most likely scenario, even with me being higher on Bieber. Do you see any other, could you see it being Strider Woodruff, or is Strider Bieber just sort of the combination it has to be?
I think it's just Strider Bieber. I ran a crunch of 100 using the Osmo stochastic projections, and I got 100% Strider. I got 75% Bieber. So I think those are pretty clearly the guys you want.
Who did you get as your other percentage? I'm just curious. I want to know if we have the same thing.
24% Woodruff, 1% Merrill Kelly.
Okay, I got 18% Merrill Kelly, but that doesn't surprise me because we know that I'm a little bit lighter on Woodruff. At catcher, 84% of my crunch was Travis d'Arnaud.
83%.
So if you're building a cash lineup, you're probably starting with Travis d'Arnaud. This is the easiest way to do it, folks. Like, you do this. If you're wildly different than like whoever's the highest owned guy in this scenario, then maybe go back to the well and take a look at what you're doing. But otherwise, like, you can trim your player pool pretty quickly by just doing this sort of exercise. First base. Now, this is where I start to get a little bit of ambiguity. I've got two guys that separated from the pack here. One of them also has outfield eligibility, which I think is helping a bit. Matt Olson showed up in 42% of my lineups. Franchy Cordero showed up in 57%.
Interesting. So for me, it is Franchy Cordero in 72%, Mark Mathias in 49%, and Matt Olson in 3%.
Mark Mathias, 21% for me.
And I should say, when I say for me, I mean basically for Stokastic, because I'm using the Stokastic projections, no randomness.
My assumption is that I'm going to have a higher value play at one of these other positions where we're basically 2v2ing somewhere is my expectation. Second base, 84% Christian Arroyo.
77%.
Okay. There we go. That's where I get Mathias at 21% again there. So he's split between first and second.
Yeah. As
third base,
49%.
Only two options for me. Austin Riley at 79%. Rafael Devers at 21%.
Yep. Austin Riley, 49%. Rafael Devers, 45%. Then I've got 6% Jose Ramirez.
There we go. I like it. So far, we're in lockstep. Shortstop. Coin flip again. 58% Dansby Swanson, 42% Xander Bogaerts.
Those are the only two shortstops I got, but I got 76% Bogaerts, 24% Swanson.
Okay. At the very least, when you hear these pieces of information coming out, guys, just know that if you play a shortstop that isn't Swanson or Bogaerts, you're probably making the wrong move.
In cash.
Yes. And then at outfield, Verdugo is my number one exposed outfielder, 85%. Tommy Pham at 60. We mentioned Cordero already. Leotis Tavares, $2,200 outfielder, showed up in 45. I think that's where I'm starting to squeeze some of my value from.
I am down at 12% Leotis Tavares. I got 94% Ronald Acuna. So I think that's where I got so much more of Mathias than you did.
Okay. That makes sense then. That makes sense. Because I'm just getting more Olsen. You're getting more Acuna. Yep. Tomato coming from the Braves. I got to 27% Acuna. So he is fifth for me. Probably wouldn't get there, but certainly reasonable.
Top catcher today. Somebody just asked in chat. Did I lose my... Oh, no, here it is.
I mean, Travis d'Arnaud based on...
Yeah.
Like just, this is the guy type questions.
I think
$3,900 and shows up in everything.
Yeah, that's for cash games, certainly d'Arnaud. And I think he's, fine. 26.5% ownership in GPPs is a little bit high relative to his odds of being the top fantasy point scorer among catchers. Adley Rutschman looks good from a GPP standpoint, coming in only 5.9% projected ownership with a 15% chance of being the top scoring catcher on the day. So I'd say as far as GPPs go, I'd probably go to Adley Rutschman as my. It all depends on the lineup, really. I mean, he looks good just relative to his ownership, but yeah, it all depends on.
I have 5% Rutschman. I wish I had a little bit more.
I think I'm going to try to get more. Of course, I'm going to be making my lineups in 15 minutes after the show ends. So we'll see if I can do everything I want to do. But yeah, I'm going to try to get a little bit more.
I'm going to hope that I don't have to do anything different and then I can just play the lineups that I have ready to go right now. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. 5:53. So remember, guys, lock is at 6:10. We are getting out of here in about 2 minutes. So if you have any other questions, please drop them in the chat right now. College football live before lock is coming up next. But I got to tell you guys first, before we do anything else, flash sale going on right now for our NFL Best Ball Draft Kit. Here's what you need to do, and it's simple. All you need to do is click the link that's going to be pinned in our YouTube chat for $1 weekly access to our NFL best ball rankings. You get the best ball stacking guide. You get the underdog daily draft rankings. There's not a lot of these available. So if you're trying to get into it, you only got a shot at 50 of them. Once 50 are gone, they are gone. So click that link, sign up for $1. Hurry up. It's best ball rankings, stacking guide, underdog daily draft rankings, and more. Flash sales, baby. Whatever happened to flash mobs?
Yeah, those are fun YouTube videos. Flash mob, like engagements. Always a good time. I just want to echo what you're saying about the best ball tools. I love using the Stokastic best ball tools just because they are made by some of the sharpest people in the industry, and they are in some cases very different than ADP. So I think that it's really useful to use those best ball tools.
Completely agree. I'm going to start taking a look at NBA best ball over the next couple of weeks. NFL is not my forte, but if I were playing NFL best ball, I would certainly be using everything that we had at the site, not just because it was free, but because I know how good of a resource it is. And I know who the people are that are making said resource.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to touch on for this slate before we get out of here and turn it over to the college football boys?
I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I guess Nathaniel Bowling is asking you, which percentage of your lineups are 5-man stacks tonight on DraftKings?
100%.
And that's one place that we are different. I don't think there's a right answer here. I certainly understand the merits to playing all 5-mans. I think I'm going a different route today, but we'll see. Who knows?
I started poring over lineup study, and it was basically like just looking at 150 maxers in the relay throw on any sort of normal slate. It was basically like an 80-20 split of 5-mans and 4-mans. And I realized at that point that more often than not, I don't care to do the additional work to run the 4-mans and like move the settings around and do it. So I said, screw it, and just started running solely 5-mans because I don't want to do the extra work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not going to. It was that. If that were like 50-50, then I would run 2 separate crunches and merge them. But it was so skewed to 5s that I was just like, do I want to run 1,600 5-man lineups and then another 400 4-man stacks just to keep that sort of spread before I sort? And eventually, I was just like, no, I don't.
Yeah, I think I'm only running 4 and 3-man potentially. I haven't 100% locked that in, but I think I'm not doing any 5-man stacks. I might still get some through Fantasy Cruncher, but yeah, not forcing it.
Well, there you go, folks. College football live before lock coming up next. Hit that like button. Let's take this one over 150 likes. Switch it over. Go see Ben and Matt breaking down whatever's playing in college football tonight. I have no idea. For Neil, I'm Josh. Shout out to Odd Shopper. We're out of here. Peace.